Hello, everybody. This is me, Michelle and Tackett, and I'm here with Erica Burns.
Hi
And
guys.
uh, we're going to talk about something that's been bothering me, and I want Erica's input too, and it's called passing, which is something that just about every transgender person want to do. We want to pass as our gender identity. Nothing makes me feel better, like when I'm walking and stuff, than to see a man or a woman or a non-binary, whatever. They'll come by me and go, ma'am, miss, things like that. It kind of reinforces we are who we say we are. But I sometimes think there's too much obsession with trying to pass, and that the only way you can be a successful trans person is if you pass. Because there have been a growing number of instances where masculine looking cisgender women have been harassed in the bathroom because somebody thought they were transgender because they didn't pass as a woman or what a woman in their eyes should look like. That's been happening more and more. And I think actually that we have to stop putting this narrow, myopic ideal of what women should look like. And that way, if a trans person can't get the correct surgery or something due to cost or whatever, they won't have to feel so bad. There are masculine looking women out there. And I think it's unfair to judge someone's gender just based on their looks alone. So I think that we need to stop with the obsession about trans men looking as masculine as they can and trans women having to look a certain way or we're not in the club.
Yeah.
How do you think that impacts the trans community?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's a great question. I think you've been saying some really good points here that are relevant to me now. I mean, um, I just was in a Walgreens last night and I was like looking at myself in like a reflection or just like, I don't know, I saw a reflection of myself or it wasn't a mirror. It was just like the shadow. I don't, anyway, point is I saw myself and I think maybe it was the camera when I walked in there and I was like, oh my God, I look like a man. Or I look like, a young man or something, I look like a boy who never grew up basically. And, I was like horrified, but then, when someone did actually call me ma'am in there, I felt a little bit better. Or like, I was like, oh, wow, I've actually, am being seen for how I feel about myself and how I'm working to present myself, or else I'm just being respected as such. And I appreciate that, and I wasn't wearing a mask. So, I mean, like my whole face was being shown. And, I mean, yeah, with that comes just feeling like, oh my gosh, because my face definitely, I do deal with like facial dysphoria and seeing the masculine aspects. But you do make a good point where it's like, you shouldn't have to feel ashamed if you don't have access to like the surgeries, facial feminization surgery. You shouldn't have to feel like, oh, well, you're invalid as a transgender person. Because I mean, I know for me, like, there's still people like who find out that I'm transgender and we're like, oh, I had no idea. I didn't realize. And I think to
Yeah.
myself, how could you not have realized? Because I definitely see when I look at my face, like I see the masculine traits and I see that, my face could definitely afford to be more feminized to feel more secure with it. But um, I mean, at the bottom end of the day, I mean, I guess when I'm really feeling vulnerable and stuff, I just realize that I still do, pass to some degree. But I mean, again, like it shouldn't have to be about passing, shouldn't have to be about like people not knowing that you were physically born male or, vice versa. It should really just be about, like you said, being seen for who you are. So I can understand where like the passing aspect can also be problematic because it's just like, okay, well, how do you get from being, one thing to another and then just all of a sudden passing? It's just like there's that vulnerable period of transitioning of me when I was 22 with facial hair and an Adam's apple and everything, still very masculine physically, beginning hormones. There is that period of that vulnerability where passing might not really be an option. And so it's just like a matter of getting from one point A to point B, and not having to deal with discrimination and all.
Yeah. I think another thing is it's just how society in general expects men and women to look. And, it's like you see all these supermodels that are skinny and stuff. And after a while, it will start to take a toll on your psyche. And because there are women cisgendered women who have been born with an Adam's apple. Me, I was born without an Adam's apple, and yet I'm still transgender. But the fact is, I was born without one. So, that just goes to show, I think what people need to do is get this really narrow definition and stuff of what men and women should be. It's dangerous to just think that there's only one way for men and women to look, because you are putting up unrealistic expectations for everyone. And another thing, I've said this 100 times before to people, we are made up of billions of DNA particles. What, you expect people to be the same? They're not going to.
Exactly.
No matter how you try to erase gays or transgenders or non-binary or whatever, you're never going to erase us, because we're just a part of society.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the more people need to stop, like, oh, well, this person looks masculine, they must be a man, and or they're a trans woman trying to sneak into the women's restroom, which is ridiculous. Like, what are we going to do? We're just going to go in there, do our business, and leave. But anyway, like, there are cisgender women who look very masculine.
Yeah.
What are some things you think we can do to change this mindset of men and women have to look a certain way?
Well, I mean, I think that there is a big mindset about that, and I think just I think changes are already happening a little bit. I mean, I think there's still room for growth and everything to avoid stigma and all, but I mean, I think I think that just basically, for one thing, not necessarily focusing on passing, like not necessarily making that be a thing. Like for me, getting facial feminization surgery is something I do want, but it's not because I want to pass as much as I just want to feel comfortable in my own skin. And for me, like I see my hairline. Everybody's like, your hairline's fine, but I'm just like, I do see the manly aspects of it, and how, for me personally, like I have side bangs because that helps me feel less insecure about my hairline. Like having these side bangs helps me feel like, okay, my hairline is not as high up and manly as it was before. But at the end of the day, side bangs are not the solution. They're just a cover up for what I'm insecure about, which is wanting my forehead moved down and my nose and all of that. But that's beside the point. The point is, we should be less focused on passing. So yeah, I know I'm asking for this surgery that is very much maybe even going to help me pass further. But ironically, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it so that I can feel more comfortable with myself, but at the same time be very openly transgender, or not, at least not trying to hide it. Like not trying to say, oh, I'm not transgender.
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's like I'm very, very open about it. Like even on dating apps and stuff, like, I mean, like my pictures are me with the transgender flag and everything. So I'm very open about it from the get-go. Like I'm very like, it's no secret. But I mean, I think that I think that's one thing, like just not having to feel like you have to pass,
Yeah.
but I understand the safety aspects of it, but just breaking down the barriers. Like, for me too, just being transgender doesn't mean that like, oh, I'm like super duper girly. Yeah, I'm wearing a pink top right now and have pink nail polish and makeup and everything. I'm looking nice, but I mean, I definitely think in a lot of ways, like in some ways I'm more of a tomboy and stuff. And I just think, yeah, I mean, in general that like, yeah, just I mean, yeah, people should be safe. They shouldn't have to worry about their safety just going to use the bathroom. And I know I definitely did growing up, and I there were times where I would pee in the bushes, or where I would wet myself a couple of times because I was afraid to use the bathrooms because there were no gender neutral bathrooms. And I was afraid if I went into the women's room, I would be told I shouldn't go there. And I was afraid if I went into the men's room, I would be made fun of. So, yeah, I mean, that's not okay. Like growing up with that, I mean, I'm scarred by that. And even if I was mentally ill and everything, like I was under 18. And so, I mean, I should have been helped as a young person. But it's just a question of who would have helped me. What adult would have helped me? Would have been an adult who supported me in being transgender? Would have been someone who thought I lost my way and needed to be, converted back to being a man. So,
Yeah,
back
yeah.
then I could have gone either way. So I was kind of stuck in this limbo, and my parents didn't really know what to do. But I'm digressing. The point is passing and bathroom usage, and that was just my own experience with using bathrooms growing up, and how I've become more comfortable. Like I don't think twice about going into the women's room now, but before it was more of a thing, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, like I still get nervous. Like nobody said anything. I just go to the women's restroom, do my business, leave. Nobody says a word. But I still get in there and I get terrified because there have been trans women who have been attacked for using the restroom.
Yeah,
And I'm like, wow, just why do you want to attack someone if they're not bothering you?
exactly.
That's
Exactly.
just disgusting.
Yeah. And that happened. I mean, I know when I was 19, there was a something on the news about a a transgender woman in my state being attacked in a McDonald's by a couple of girls. Like they basically were dragging her and kicking her, and people were filming it. Um, and then like a few years later, like I was, beginning to transition, and like officially or whatever, and my friend dragged me into a McDonald's, and not dragged me like violently, like had me come with her to a McDonald's, and then we
Yeah.
went in the bathroom, and she was trying to be like, yeah, come in the bathroom with me, and I think there was someone in there who was like, saying I shouldn't have been in there, but it was just like, I mean, I think I realized it later on that night, but I was like, oh my God, I'm in a McDonald's in the women's restroom, just like that other transgender woman a few years ago was, and she'd gotten beaten and stuff. And of course, my friend meant well, but, and she was there with me, but I don't think she had fully considered the safety aspects and the dangers and everything, just really a shame and all. But yeah, I mean, um, it's definitely all quite complicated, and it would be nice if people could, be more tolerant of one another, and people could just use the bathroom in peace, and it didn't have to be such an issue. Um, but I mean, at the end of the day, um, things have been very gendered over the years based on what someone's body parts are, someone's physical traits are, and you're expected to um, basically you're expected to be treated or acting a certain way based on that. And it's not always that simple. I mean, like I never, I just, as young as, 6 or 7, I just remember I was like putting on like Vaseline on my lips and stuff. And I just remember saying hi to a friend who turned out to be gay. And I just wonder at the time if I was coming out to him and didn't even realize I was, but I was like confiding in him at the time. It was like maybe we had some sort of secret or subconscious bond and both being queer. But in any regard, I just know that it's never as simple as just someone's born with certain parts and therefore they're going to act a certain way. And that's a fact, whether you're conservative or liberal or whatever your beliefs are, and or your agendas are.
Yeah, I mean, I that's why I hate the ideal of this obsession with passing because nobody should be afraid to use the restroom. It's using the restroom.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just ridiculous. And
pretty
I
straightforward.
will
Yeah,
I will say this. The media is to blame because they blow these things out of proportion and they love doing it because it gets them ratings.
Mm-hmm.
But, like transgender people go into the restroom all the time, and a lot of people don't even know it. And I wish we could just get back to that, to where nobody cares.
Yeah.
That unless somebody is trying to hurt you, then you leave them alone.
Exactly.
Like, I like to carry mace and stuff with me, because if somebody starts on me in the restroom and tries to attack me, I'm going to mace them.
Good for you. Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's kind of sad though that I have to do that, but what can I do?
Right. It is sad. It is sad because I mean, we fought so hard to be who we are, and or it's been difficult to be who we are. It's such a beautiful thing to be able to be who we are. We should be able to do that freely on top of all the struggles we've had, but then we still have to deal with life and all its constraints. And I think ultimately it just goes to show that there's a greater evil at work here that, has been oppressing all of us as humans, not just if you're trans or queer, but also if you're even straight. A lot of straight people, are oppressed by their own bigotry and their own preconceived notions that they've gone along with and not even realize they were doing it at the time. And I feel like history does have a way of repeating itself, and people are doing it nowadays in different ways that they might one day realize were pretty toxic, but they were kind of manipulated and made to do that. And it's very much like what it has been in the past.
And I think it forces a lot of people to do things they wouldn't normally do. Like, if you're considered a cis man, you're supposed to get married and all that stuff. And what if you're trans or gay and that isn't for you? See, they're going to try, because I've known some trans people, women, who've tried to force themselves to live as men. And then their families got torn apart because they finally couldn't take it no more.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there like, whereas if people had to set these expectations up, they could have came out. They may not have had children and gotten married, but there wouldn't be a broken home.
Yeah.
So sometimes I just think that society in general, we set ourselves up for failure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the bigger picture here, I think, is the mass, the bigger powers at hand that, are all about the greater good and the collective and stuff, is really, shortening the ability. And I mean, I'm of the generation now, the millennial generation, where, I'm now at that point where it's like, I don't know if I'm going to get married or have children because I'm out as transgender prior to, that. But if I was in your generation or a generation prior to that, I may have been one of the ones who just got married and had a girlfriend and, had kids and then been part of that broken home dynamic. But I think, my generation maybe kind of superseded that or was on the cusp of that. And just knowing about transgender from a young age also allowed me to be like, well, I know that that's who I am and what I want to do or need to do. So I kind of just like, anyway, it is definitely setting people up for failure a lot of times by not really taking care of the individual and realizing what an individual's needs are because it's not convenient to the greater good of things, and then just brushing it under the rug and hoping it will go away or that it'll be dealt with in college or something. But meanwhile, there's a lot of psychological suppression and stunting of growth, and it's all coming to fruition at once. And that's definitely been that case for me this decade, and it has been devastating. It really has. And I'm still here to tell and share my story, but it could have been better. It could have been worse, but it could have also been a lot better.
Yeah, like I said, I think there are a lot of things we need to change. And one of them is trying to set up these to the moon expectations for people, because not everybody's going to be a CEO or a banker or a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, or a sports athlete or a famous actor or singer. And that doesn't mean that people should be living low just because they don't have a certain skill set.
Exactly.
So I think that's another thing we need, like people like, oh, jobs of value. Every job has a value. If the janitor don't do their work, the place is messy. If the taxi cab driver don't drive somebody to work, that person don't get to work. the cook, the chef, the housewife, homemaker, grocery delivery driver, bag person, everybody makes a society work.
Exactly.
So I think we're going to end it because this was a great discussion. And I think passing, I understand the need to pass, but I think we need to stop obsessing over it too much.
Yeah.
Because not only are you hurting trans people, you're hurting cisgendered women who just happen to look butch and stuff. You're hurting them as well.
Yeah. You really are. You really are.
Thank you, Erica. You're lovely as always. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And have a good one.